Look, I think if someone says they're AI powered, that's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. It's all marketing. The Clippy of incidents is going to show up and say, we think it's a recent change that caused this incident.
Your appetite increases as you eat.
AI won't take your job. People that use AI will take your job.
Startup advice is a little bit like dieting advice. You get conflicting advice all day long, all day, every day.
I think a lot of founders will tell you that it was not a smooth ride. It was some really high highs and some really low lows. An investor is selling you money. That's their job. If you've been going a year and you don't have paying customers, like writing's on the wall, in my opinion.
Today, my guest is Robert Russ, the founder and the CEO of FireHydrant, also known as Bobby Tables. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, it's an old online moniker I've had for a long time.
And I think it's not going to go away. Salt Lake City. If I go to your profile right now, you would probably be forgiven for thinking that all you do is going to KubeCons and doing interesting things there. How was it?
It was good. It was a good conference. I think that KubeCon has grown so much over the last few years. Was a pretty early user of Kubernetes at a last job. Like 2015, we had it in production. So it's crazy seeing how much the ecosystem has evolved over the years. The sponsorship hall took over 2.5 minutes to walk from the door to our booth. And even then, the booth was not the last one in the aisle. So it's kind of a shock, honestly.
These things are ridiculous at this stage. What was the first one we've gone to? First KubeCon?
Oh gosh, it was years ago. I think even before starting FireHydrant, I was there. So it's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my first one. That was the one in London. I'm forgetting if it was 2016. I think it was 2016. There was like 100-something people. And we were just chatting to the maintainers. It was a very different vibe. And then look at that. It's about 15,000 people.
Yeah, there's like a whole wall of stickers that you can grab for all the CNCF projects. And it's like a big booth now. Like there's so many projects under CNCF and Kubernetes adjacent that it's just huge. It's a massive conference.
So from a point of view of someone who obviously runs a company in this domain, is that a must do? Does everybody need to go to KubeCon?
I don't think so. I think we're there for a very specific reason. It's if you're running Kubernetes or some of the other projects, there's a non-zero chance you're encountering some level of incidents and you need incident management. Companies pick the conferences they sponsor because they think that their audience and their ideal customer profile is there. And we had so many site reliability engineers coming up to our booth, people, incident managers that are saying, yeah, I am tasked with finding a new tool. So for us, it makes a lot of sense to be there. And then there was a lot of other companies that are there as well that are like, we integrate with Kubernetes. We are a vendor for Open Policy Agent, for example. So a lot of kind of adjacent vendors in the space, if not directly associated with Kubernetes.
But as far as I know, you're the only one coming with a 50 pounds worth of tactical gear bag to give away instead of Legos. Is that right?
That is true. Look, I'm going to start off by saying, if you're a company that brings Legos to a conference, like I'm only slightly giving you shade. I just don't think it's very creative. That's my biggest dig against it. I was walking around the conference room floor and there's a shortage of the Lego set, the Millennium Falcon Lego set. And I think it's because every tech company has bought them and they give them away at conferences, because there was like 4 or 5 of them on the floor, a bunch of other Lego sets, get a pair of headphones, things like that. I think that's cool. But the problem is that if you're in tech, you can probably afford that. Honestly, you could probably buy that for yourself. What's something that we can give away that stands out, that's super unique, that's a funny thing that someone would say for years, yeah, I got this crazy thing from this company called FireHydrant at this conference. And we came up with a real life Sev1 survival bag. We were calling it the bug outage bag because it's called the bug out bag. So we added the word outage. And it was almost 50 pounds. It had freeze-dried food for several weeks. It had like warmth blankets, those like foil blankets. It came with life straws. It came with everything you would need to survive for the most part in case of an emergency. And it came in a really nice bag too. That was like the nice thing about it, was this bag that I came in, and thank God a local won it, because it was pretty heavy and someone would have had to check it on their flight home if that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Although there is something about getting that Falcon Millennium, earning it or winning it, that just, I guess, makes it a little bit better. And then, the mandatory next step is to go to LinkedIn and post a photo of yourself. And then after your kids have assembled that. So there is a little bit of a ritual to that you guys are breaking, but I appreciate the innovation.
Look, we're going to be a little different in every way possible. Still, every time I pass a Millennium Falcon on those sponsorship tests, I'm like, oh yeah, I should enter that because it's pricey. It's like $800.
Yeah, exactly. Hard to justify, even if you can afford it. It's hard to put in a budget. All right. So for anybody who is now frantically looking up yourself on LinkedIn, let's get it out of the way. Tell us a little bit what you guys are doing and what FireHydrant can do for you.
We're an incident management tool. We are bridging the entire process of an incident. So on-call alerting, being able to page out to someone. We also do the incident management portion directly, such as declare an incident, create a Slack channel, create a Jira ticket, create a ServiceNow ticket, and then a bunch more. And then once the incident is actually resolved, FireHydrant provides a really interactive, retrospective experience as well. Rinse and repeat. At some point, my goal with the tool is being able to manage an entire incident with one Chrome tab. I think that's the big goal that I have. Imagine if you never needed to have any other tab but a FireHydrant tab open to resolve an incident. We've been doing it for about 6 years, and it started because I'm a recovering on-call engineer. I like to joke.
Awesome. And who's your target audience? Is this smaller companies, bigger companies? Who's like your typical customer at the moment?
Anyone that's experiencing some level of pain from reliability issues is really in our wheelhouse. I would say that SMB, if you're a smaller company, like 10 folks, probably the free side of FireHydrant is probably great if you need on-call incident management, something simple. But we do tend to work with very large companies and the many thousands of engineers all onboarded onto our products. That's our sweet spot. That's where we like to sell to. And yeah, that's just ended up being our strategy as a company.
So the $1 million question now is, are you AI first?
No, we are not AI first. I don't even know what that means. It's got a flashy ring to it. Look, I think if someone says they're AI powered, that's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. It's all marketing. Because what does AI powered even mean? There's still like a Rails controller under the hood storing stuff in a Postgres database, and then you're hitting an OpenAI API endpoint to summarize something. That's not AI powered. That's just nonsense. So we say AI enriched. That's our phrasing.
AI enriched. Okay, noted, written down. I'll know for the next time. Okay, fair enough. But like going back to the AI and I'm having this conversation with a bunch of people right now. Jokes aside for a minute. Mm-hmm. It feels like we should be very close to something usable where some of the kind of legwork that you have to do, at least with the context gathering and pattern matching and that kind of stuff, feels like the recent developments in LLMs and all of that should be able to help us with that. And yet, I've talked to at least 10 people who feel the same way, but I don't know anybody who's like making proper production usage with that. I remember that Meta study where they found they could analyze one of their subsystems and they got 40-something%. I think it was 42% of accuracy of pointing in the right direction of the root cause. Sorry, I didn't mean to say root cause. I know it's a sensible subject. But yeah, from where you sit, very close to that, and you see the other companies working in the sphere, where are we and how far are we from something that is actually revolutionary?
A lot of the use cases that I see people with incident management that are looking for something around AI, we built the summarization of incident response, basically. So I think that's where we are right now, is summarizing incidents, revealing similar incidents to the past. We're able to do semantic search on our data set and find incidents that look fairly similar to one another. Mm-hmm. And it actually works pretty well. But Where we aren't yet, but I think will be the first step in AI for site reliability is diagnostics reports. A big issue that folks have to deal with still during incident management is someone pulls a fire alarm, it's a Sev1, FireHydrant automates all the process of creating channels, updating customer support. We do that process, but we don't help with the diagnostic yet. And I think that's what people are looking for is, sure, once I know there's an incident, how can I find the right logs correctly? How can I find the most recent exception? How can I find the most recently deployed change to the system that is being impacted right now? Mm-hmm. And I think that we're going to start seeing from tools like FireHydrant and a number of others out there, a dashboard that helps you diagnose for you and gives you a trailhead. And similar to what you were just saying, Meta has starting to build, they have their own data set for all of this for, how long has it been now? 20 years, right? They've probably been able to train models on this stuff. FireHydrant's going to start doing the same thing. I think a bunch of others are going to start doing the same thing where it basically flashes up on the screen and says, it looks like you're having an incident. The clippy of incidents is going to show up and say, we think it's a recent change that caused this incident. That's what I think is going to happen next. I think people are a little too scared to have something fixing incidents for them. I know I am, because sometimes you use a tool to restart a service or something like that, and actually just makes the problem worse. Our systems are far too complex right now to start relying on something like that. And I think that we're a couple of years away from auto-resolved incidents. Even just culturally, I don't think the world is going to be accepting of an auto-resolution agent until it's battle-tested. And someone's going to have to really prove that first before a bunch of other people like really buy into it, right? There's going to be a moment that someone says, no, it works, and actually works really well. And then I think people will start doing it and really accept it as an option.
Okay, prediction time. What's going to come first, self-driving cars or self-resolving incidents?
Oh, self-driving cars first. Those are here now. When you go to San Francisco, you can take a Waymo almost anywhere in the city right now, and it drives very well.
Apart from the one place where you want to take them, which is the airport.
Yeah, until you need to go to the airport, and then you got to take a lift. I don't know if I trust a self-driving car on the freeway just yet. That's a little too spooky for me.
I've got this dotted thing, like when we go and do the SRE day in San Francisco, we did one 2 weeks ago, and I got like an update of how the Waymos have progressed, and it's quite remarkable how more punchy they are now. Like they're really joining quickly. Although I still saw a few times where I just stopped in the middle of the street and blocked the entire street because it was waiting for a passenger, and people did not like that. And I don't blame them.
Yeah, I think that's my experience with it too. I've taken them in Scottsdale, Arizona there, and I've taken them in San Francisco. And San Francisco, they were far more disruptive than they were in Arizona because there's just more road, honestly, and less city.
Yeah, it is a little tricky. But yeah, it does feel dystopian in a way. You get this. Part of me is still wondering how this AI really is, because I guess I got old and skeptical, cynical even. Remember the Amazon Fresh stores that were supposed to be like AI, and it turns out that AI was associates in India the entire time.
Just watching you.
Yeah, watching you. I wonder if Waymo's gonna pull something like that as well.
I think AI in a lot of ways is a branding thing. And what does artificial even mean sometimes? I'll say about the Waymo cars. Waymo, if the cars get stuck, it kind of phones home, and then there's a person that has a joystick effectively that can drive the car. It's basically 80-20 rule. 80% of the time it'll work, 20% of the time it may not. And I honestly think that's going to be the same thing with site reliability too, is that the AI will try to do a lot of the work and get you most of the way there, but you're still going to have to be there and intervene. And it's a way to help scale these teams. Instead of having an armada of Lyft or Uber drivers driving 100 cars, you can have 5 people waiting in the event that the car needs human intervention. SRE, I think, is going to go the same way. These systems are going to be self-healing. They're going to diagnose themselves. And then when it gets to the point, it's, hey, actually, I need you to do the rest of it, you only need 5 other people instead of 100.
Which is fair enough. And I don't know, there's something about the human mind that, like, your appetite increases as you eat, right? We're at the stage where a lot of these things are basically co-pilot, what you're describing, right? It does like most of the stuff, and then it needs a human to actually validate that. And I don't know, like it's amazing, right? It already helps so much, and it's awesome. But people are like, yeah, but what about the other 20%?
Yeah.
How about the other 20%? Have you tried any of the autonomous software engineers? Like there was this Devin thing that everybody got excited about, and then everybody started debunking, and I'm not sure what's the latest on that. I've seen a few of those, like writing unit tests and focus on like testing software and stuff like that. Have you tried any of that?
I haven't tried like the specific ones, like the Devin tool. I haven't tried that, but I'm a massive proponent of Anthropic and what they are doing. Even just before jumping on this podcast, I was using Anthropic to write a little React component that is animated because I just didn't know how to do it. And I can give it a very silly prompt based on, I think it should do this, and it can write production-ready React JavaScript for me. So that world is here. There is no doubt in my mind that world is here right now. And this phrase was said right when AI kind of started becoming popular. AI won't take your job. People that use AI will take your job. I think that's true. Even 2 years later, it was quick in the moment. I was a little skeptical, but I'm a big believer in that now too.
100%. Another instance where I see a lot of AI usage is, I think on LinkedIn, a majority of comments are now AI generated because they all sound the same. And it's interesting to see one bot interacting with another bot to create engagement. But maybe I'm spending too much time on LinkedIn lately. It's just a little nuts.
I won't comment on that. But I do think that we're getting into this weird era where AI is really good, but humans can still tell that it's AI. And the reason that humans can tell is not because of one comment that they see on LinkedIn or one email they get from an SDR, a sales development representative. It's like, it's not actually an SDR. The reason is because we see the same thing over and over again. AIs generate mostly the same type of language, unless you prompt it really differently, unless you say, write this like a pirate. Then it's a little hard to tell. But the only reason I can tell that something is AI now is because it's starting to look the same.
Yeah.
And we're on this weird graph right now where I think we're at the peak where people are like, wait, this is AI, and they're going to stop interacting with those bots. They're going to stop replying to those emails, and it's a race to the bottom. I actually commented, I wrote this, I think last week on my LinkedIn, like I have so many AI generated emails from sales teams that I can tell they're all the same because they all say the same thing. And I'm like, I'm not going to interact with any of these now. So now the AI has killed the outbound email for me, for sales folks.
The hint is to tell it to sound like a pirate. And I promise you, I'm actually going to read that email if you make it sound like a pirate. So
yeah,
just don't make it sound the same. There are some words that are just like, you immediately pick up that it wasn't written by a human. And I saw some rankings of words that just started appearing in papers, and there's almost none, and then ChatGPT arrives and it's like shooting up.
Oh, that's super interesting. Yeah,
with the probability of a few words. But anyway, rant aside, one of the reasons I was really excited to talk to you today is because I've been following you and FireHydrant for basically, I think, since the beginning of the last 6 years. And it was interesting for me. I, in the meantime, had my job working for someone else. You were building your own thing. And I think a lot of people are now realizing that stability of jobs, especially like in big tech, is not what it used to be. And a lot of people are talking about doing their own thing. So talking to someone who's done it and who's done the whole thing, you're at Series B, right? You've done the entire fundraising, the whole dance. It's very interesting. So I was wondering if we could go a little bit through the history of FireHydrant, the interesting plots and twists, and like the crucial moments in the history of it, so that other people can potentially learn from that and maybe either be inspired or say, no, scratch that, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I pretty consistently joke with people. I'm like, don't start a company. But there are a lot of rewards. A little bit of history on FireHydrant, and I guess me as a consequence of that. So my background, I'm a software engineer. I've been on call in the past. I've built a lot of software. I've been writing software since I was 12 years old. And that's It's just something I'm really passionate about. I love building software that other engineers use. I like teaching people how to write software, how to use software. That's just who I am. And being on call for as many years as I was, there's all these on-call tools. And if you're listening to this, odds are you've heard of the companies like the PagerDuties of the world, the Ops Genies, VictorOps, which is now Splunk On Call. There was a number of them.
Yeah.
And look, I think those tools had their time, but I think now they're just very expensive smoke detectors. And they haven't quite diversified from what their products are. So FireHydrant, back in 2018, I started building FireHydrant as a very selfish tool for myself, because I was annoyed I was getting paged, and then we had a manual process. Everyone knew when there's an incident, create a Slack channel, update the status page, tell customer success. Like, there was a process, and it was in a document, but it wasn't automated.
Yeah.
So I started building FireHydrant as that automation, and I was getting up early. I live in New York City, and I was like the first one to the coffee shop, and I would get my I had a whole routine. I was there at 5 a.m. I got my coffee, and I just would work on FireHydrant for a few hours, and then I would go to my full-time job, and then I would go home. I'd work on FireHydrant a little bit more. I was taking my personal laptop to the beach with my friends and like working on it there, even because I just got really invested in this idea. And as any like really good story, I think, starts, like, it was very right place, right time to meet an investor here in New York City. Love them to death. They're still on my board. Their name is Workbench. And they were looking at the space, and they just came across FireHydrant by looking for types of tools like it. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, would you ever do this full time? We would be interested in investing. And I gave it about 30 seconds of thought, I think. And I said, yeah, let's do it. I'm very much a yes man, just jump in and figure the rest out later. And that's exactly what I did. I resigned from my job at the time. They were very gracious about it. And we did this $1.5 million seed round with Workbench, and I brought in 2 close friends as co-founders, and we just got to work, and we just started building a lot of product. And that was the beginnings of it. And it was this like crazy first start. Even when you have $1.5 million, that's a lot of money. And when you have 3 people only, it lasts a long time. But one of the first things that we did is we actually bought like a pull-out couch, because my co-founder, Dylan, lived in San Diego, and he wanted to move to New York City to work on this company. So before laptops, we bought a couch. we put it in my 1-bedroom apartment in Greenwich Village. Tiny little apartment, like 400 square feet. There's this photo of him and the pull-out couch, and the pull-out couch goes from one wall to the other wall. And we were getting up at 6:30, 7 in the morning. And one of the first things that we did when we got our payroll system is you're given these options. Do you want to add any perks for employees? We were 3 employees. And one of the perks that we added was a gym reimbursement, because we were like, if we're going to do this, we have to like really exercise. So my co-founder and I, we were getting up at 6:30, going to the gym with our gym reimbursement that we gave ourselves. And then we'd go to the office where our VC was, and then we just would write code all day. And yeah, that was the beginnings of it.
That is awesome. But the one thing that I don't know how you did is working on the beach. Like, I tried this on a holiday a few times, and it's just like there's no screen that I can find that's bright enough to work in the sun.
The trick is you got to set your terminal to light mode, but it is really difficult. Yeah. And it's also scary, right? Sand and laptops don't go well together.
Yeah, sand and anything doesn't go well together. But nothing against the beach. I think that entrepreneurship and like startup advice is a little bit like dieting advice. You get conflicting advice all day long, all day, every day. You clearly went the build for yourself and hopefully they come, and it looks like they did. A lot of people would say that's a terrible idea. Look for a problem that someone already is complaining about and satisfy that instead of building for yourself. So what's your advice? Would you do it the same way?
I would start the company the same way. Yeah. I don't think I could ever build something that I haven't felt the pain myself. Because for FireHydrant, even up until today, the features that we built that are the most popular, that win us deals, were not things that a customer told us. Our Slack bot, our incident management, all of that, our service catalog was actually a day one feature. Like it was actually some of the first code we wrote before incidents. Runbooks, automating the process, giving flexibility around all of that. No customer came and told us that stuff. There's like a very famous Henry Ford quote about this. He said, if I had asked customers what they want, they'd say a faster horse. And that is true. And you have to have an imagination a little bit of what can I build that solves a problem that I know I have. And then the assumption you're making is, do other people have the same problem I have? And there's books that talk about this stuff. I think one of the most popular ones is the mom test. Don't ask your mom if you should do something because they love you and they're proud of you, I hope. And they're always going to say, yeah, do it. And you have to take a calculated guess on some of the stuff. I would say that the one thing I would change is I would put something out much faster. It is easier than ever to build software. It is easier than ever to put up a marketing site with a sign-up form. It is the best time ever to build software is right now. So if you do have an idea, like why not spend a weekend on it, see how far you get, and then get it in front of someone and see what they say. That didn't used to be the case. It did used to take several months before you had an MVP that someone could give you actually critical feedback on.
So how long did it take you to go from that idea to something that you showed an actual client, a real human?
So I had to get buy-in at my job that I installed FireHydrant at. Mm-hmm. So I was building on the side, right? I was getting up early and I was installing, and then I built what became FireHydrant. It was actually always called FireHydrant. And I actually started in like 2017. That's when the first line of code was. So I like to say we were definitely the first, because the first initial commit on GitHub was in 2017. And I was like building for a year on and off, not as seriously as I got. In May of 2018, I probably 6 months of like very seriously spending time on it before it became something that was, I would say, sellable. It could have a paying customer.
So from where I sit, it looks like you never really had a major pivot, right? Unlike a lot of the stories where I started with one thing, it seems like you basically had a problem that you felt, and that's been the same exact problem that you've been working on since. Is that right? Or am I missing something here?
That is right. And there's another great podcast, like How I Built This. And he always asks at the end, how much of this was luck and how much of this was like hard work?
Yeah.
And I think I'm on the same page as many founders are, which is 50-50. There was a lot of hard work that goes into doing this. And there's actually like a decent amount of luck that comes with it too. An investor that just happened to be looking for this space and finding me, that's luck.
Excuse me, here's a 1.5 million check. Please take it.
I was freaking out. I was actually at my job when the wire hit the bank account that I created for the company. And I was like, I'd never seen that much money in a bank account ever in my life. I had to leave the building because I was like, whoa. It was a very like interesting feeling I had. Yeah, you have to be a little crazy at the same time. And if a little bit of luck wins your way, then I think you should take that as a sign almost.
Okay, fine. You got your initial seed round. You got 2 your best friends. You started going to the gym, or maybe continued. Sorry, don't want it to come across like that.
For quite some while.
What's next? What was the next major milestone and breakthrough for FireHydrant?
I think we're at a really interesting point as a company, because while we were building a product for the right time and the right audience, and we had the domain experience ourselves as being an on-call engineer, building a tool for yourself, that's great. That's the best way you can build a product, I think. But I would say the market was actually just a little early when we first launched. We got some unbelievably great customers very early, paying us substantial amounts of money, like 6-figure contracts, annual contracts, multi-year contracts. And even after the heyday of 2021, early 2022, we're still getting those types of customers. But something has changed in the last 6 months. And incident management, reliability tools, on-call, that space seems to have this new life to it. This is qualitative, but like something happened 6 months ago. CrowdStrike took down the internet. Like CrowdStrike destroyed days of a lot of people very swiftly. 5.3 billion is the estimate right now for the cost. And I can't say the names of the companies that are reaching out to us now, but like we're talking Fortune 50 businesses are now looking at tooling for incident management and on-call. And there's this, I think, new era of reliability coming along. I think that what we're seeing from our customers and the people reaching out to us is that software itself is now becoming a centerpiece for the minds of the CEOs at these very large companies. And I think what's going to happen and what we're driving towards is reliability is going to become a business metric. It's going to be measurable. You're going to be able to measure the impacts of incidents to your overall top line business. And what we care about is we're chasing that. We want to build the tool that lets you measure reliability at a very granular level of your business and then provides all the tools to help you improve it.
Yeah, I've got slightly different experience because I've never obviously run a startup like you, but a few years back, I was working on this open source tool in my free time for chaos engineering, Powerful SEAL. It was an interesting thing because I discovered that a lot of people get excited about that, but then this entire, I would say, DevX, is that the right word? Like the reliability
developer experience.
Yeah, has been basically under this, okay, yeah, this is a good idea, but it's not a feature. Even getting them to use a free tool wasn't always easy because they agreed, oh yeah, this is a great idea, all of that, but then it would just go under the carpet. And I think you're right in saying that it takes a little bit of a chaos/horror story like CrowdStrike to actually wake up that. So I guess that goes into the luck bucket.
Yeah, lucky for us, extremely unlucky for millions upon millions of other people. But I can't be sure. But I do think that incident management was on the minds of people, and then CrowdStrike hit. Yeah. And now we are seeing a change in our business. We are seeing companies that are extremely big looking for a tool like FireHydrant.
Yeah, I was on a holiday in New Zealand, and we were at the airport, and we saw these streams and streams of blue screens of death, and
oh no,
we weren't sure whether we were able to even take our flight. But in the end, they printed something. They were doing like this paper checkups, and we flew. But it was interesting. Anyway,
lucky you.
Okay, so you've got that. What's next then? Like, at some point, you're under the pressure from investors to grow your company, become bigger, raise your valuation, for some people to materialize some gains from that. How did you manage that? What was that part of the journey like?
Yeah, I think for us, for the last 5 years, I think a lot of founders will tell you that it was not a smooth ride. It was some really high highs and some really low lows. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that FireHydrant didn't have some crappy moments the last couple of years. But what I will say is that the best thing that we had in our back pocket in the times that we really needed help was an amazing board and investors to help us. That was capital, whether that was emotional support, whether that was helping close a very large customer that would like give us a leg up on something else that we were trying to do. Like they came in clutch several times over the last couple of years, especially with our go-to-market. And I would say for the folks that are thinking about starting a company, you don't have to take money from any investor. And if it's an investor that you don't really want to work with, but it's money, I would caution against it. I'm not going to say yes or no. I don't think that the world is that binary.
Yeah.
I think you have to really weigh the cost benefits of it. Because at the end of the day, an investor is selling you money. That's their job. Their job is to sell you money. And the money that they get back is in the future, basically. And you have to basically decide if you want to work with that investor for the next 10 years, right? Think about it that way. Don't think about the next year or 2 years until your next round. That's not how it works. It's 10 years. That's the standard. And I think that We set really good expectations. We're really communicative. I send text messages to my investors when I need to. I take calls any time of the day. We have a Slack channel with all of our investors in one place, so I can put, hey, we just won this deal in there. And it's a good way for them just to have a pulse on the business. Because the moment that an investor doesn't hear from a founder of the company they've invested in, they're going to get spooked and they're not going to support you. And as hard as it is to maybe own your mistakes and own the bad things going on, maybe years ago, I had an exec leave. That was like a pretty key exec. And I had to tell our board that, and that sucked. But when you just own it, that's the best thing you can do. For me, I feel very lucky to have the board that I do. Honestly, I have some great investors. I have some of the best investors ever, actually. Holy crap. Yeah. And I see us and I see their past investments and I'm like, ooh, man, I've got a long way to go until what they hit. Yeah, if the TLDR, get a great investor, make sure you really like them and communicate with them as much as you can.
Okay. And what's next for FireHydrant? What's the goal? Are you going to be looking for some exit at some point? What's the end game?
Yeah, I tell people this when they ask, like, what's the goal of FireHydrant? The goal of FireHydrant is to build a great product, grow the company, and have some killer revenue forever. That's our goal. I think when a founder gets asked IPO or acquisition, they like give you a straight faced answer of IPO or acquisition. It's a little bit of a red flag to me, actually, because I can't really aim at that. I can aim at revenue. I can aim at a product roadmap. I can aim at those things. And an IPO and an acquisition is the result of executing on my roadmap, my revenue goals, my hiring targets. Like those are results, not targets. I'm targeting either. I'm targeting both because I can't hit both. If I hit either of those, that means that I hit my actual target, revenue, roadmap, hires. That's actually what I focus on. The rest will play out.
That's fair enough. There's this idea flying around and links to what you said about how easy it is to write software today versus 20 years ago, that we're going to start seeing unicorns that are single people with a bunch of AI. And a lot of people run away with that because it sounds very futuristic. They're just going to have 15 devons, autonomous developers. Do you think there's some truth to that?
I think people like to point at one example and then go crazy with it. Will there be a single person company that's worth $1 billion? Yes. There's companies cutting it pretty close right now in the billions that with valuation that are like 30 people. And valuation is not representative of the company's revenue in startups. It's not accurate, really. It's future belief mostly more than anything.
Yeah.
And I don't take too much stock in that stuff. I think that markets have their trends. I think AI tools are all the hype right now. And I think that some AI tools are just going to get these crazy $1 billion valuations with 5 million less in revenue. Whatever. I'm such a cynic about this stuff. Here's where I'm going with this. I would tell folks, don't try to be that. That's not a badge. Like, who cares? Like, being a $500 million company with 500 people is also great. That's awesome. Decide who you want to be and be that person. I'm not measuring myself against a $1 billion valuation. I'll say that.
Yeah, you get the indication of this trend where all the people who are talking about crypto on my social media feed suddenly became AI experts seemingly overnight.
No, it's going the other way.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Crypto's having its day again.
Oh yeah, but so, you guys remember, I was also crypto expert the other day. Let's go back to that. Yeah, social media, Jesus. Right, so if we were to just summarize now, you've dropped quite a lot of this wisdom nuggets. But for anybody who's listened to this and is thinking, okay, fine, so I'm sitting in this like deep tech thing. I like writing software for other software engineers, and I've got some ideas. I have some problems. What would be like your framework for go, no go? What would be like the minimum requirements for, let's say someone asks you to mentor them? What would be like the minimum requirements for you to say, yeah, you should go for it? Unlike their mom who will always say you should go for it.
My minimum requirements. The first thing I think I would say is set a timeline for yourself, set an end time. Because I've seen people have an idea and they get one hit of dopamine once a week However, it could be small or big, but it's not enough momentum. You get that hit and you just keep going.
Yeah.
At a certain point, like life's too short, honestly, and it's okay to stop. So I would say that if you've been going a year and you don't have paying customers, like writing's on the wall, in my opinion, like maybe take a break, take a step back, because when you're in it, it's really hard. So one of my first things, set a timer for yourself to figure it out. It's also a good forcing function for you.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is vision and mission are really important. There's a lot of books that talk about that, but I don't think that a lot of people, me especially, I would say for a long time at FireHydrant, I didn't quite understand like what is even the difference between a mission and a vision. Some websites say mission is the short term. Some people say mission is the long term, and it just gets really convoluted. But I would say at the end of the day, like have a really clear document. Like you have to tell me in writing what you're trying to solve, what the problem is. If you can't write that down in a cohesive, concise way, you're going to have a really hard time building anything, especially a company. The product sometimes is one of the easiest things to build. Building a company around that is arguably the hardest part, actually. So you have to be able to tell me, like, what is your product trying to solve? And I would also say, like, how do you make money? You can't tell me how you make money, then you shouldn't build anything. You should stop. Because I think there's a lot of companies that built their businesses in search of trying to find a way to make money. And then they had to abandon a lot of their product ideals because they forgot that they had to make money. This one was a funny example, but Perplexity, it's like this search engine alternative. They said for a long time, we're not going to have ads. We're not going to have ads. And they're like, oh crap, we need to make money. So they're like, yeah, we're going to have ads. And I think it's a good example of you have to know how you're going to make money pretty early on. It doesn't even be super specific. You don't need to say it's going to be X amount of dollars per month per user. I think you just have to say it's going to be per seat. We're going to figure out the price later. We're going to figure out what people are willing to pay. That's an okay option.
There was a long-ish period of time where you could like seemingly infinitely just raise more funds and kick that can down the road. But I think that's
not anymore.
That's not anymore the case. Unless you're OpenAI or something.
Yeah, it depends on the space you're in for sure.
Yeah.
I would say I forgot probably one of the more critical things, and I would get called out on it if I didn't say it, is know who your customer is. There's a reason that ideal customer profile is one of the first things that a salesperson will ask or marketing. Like they need to know who you're selling to. They need to understand who the person is that would buy your product, what their problems are, what their pains are. If you can't explain who the ideal customer is either, you're going to be in for a hell of a time. And then I would say go a layer deeper. Pick the type of customer. Once you know my ideal customer is a developer, okay, where does that developer work? Do they work at a 50-person company or do they work at a 5,000-person company? Because that's going to change your product more than you can even imagine. Building a product for a 50-person company versus a 5,000-person publicly traded company, those are different products.
100%. All right, Bobby, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for sharing, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks so much for having me.